What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic, what is it, Saturday? Saturday. Happy Saturday. But if you're watching this, chances are your Saturday did not quite go as planned. So, getting little Miss Foxy ready for her dyno debut. Now, this will not be this car's first, second, third, 10th, or 20th time getting strapped down onto the rollers. But what I wanted to do is just kind of walk you through the process, what I've been up to with the car, and basically some of the steps that I'm taking to get this contraption ready to go on the rollers. And really, it's kind of a reminder for you guys. You know, if you're planning on taking your car to get tuned, you just want to take it to see what kind of power it's making. If you've got a manual transmission car, you're looking to see what your power curve looks like so you can basically lock down shift points, things like that. Whenever you do stuff like that, though, there are things that you're going to need to do to get your car ready to go hit the dyno. Hey, what's up, Michael? How you doing, buddy? Got the arm flex. I like it. Because quite honestly, in my experience, and guys, keep in mind, I've been doing this stuff for a long time. Dyno to all kinds of different vehicles, anywhere from classic muscle all the way up to some semi-exotic stuff. And the one thing that never, ever goes out of fashion is being prepared. And that means making sure that you've checked all of your fluids, making sure that the tires are in good shape, making sure that you've got everything basically set up, that the car is fit and ready to go with no leaks or anything like that. So that's what I've been up to, getting Foxy ready. Now, if you saw the last video that I posted, you know Foxy's running pretty good right now. As a matter of fact, she's running really good. Was able to get her out for a little bit, playing around with the tune. Calcon software is not playing nicely with my latest computer, so I was trying to run everything off of my old computer, but the old computer is kind of sketch anyway. So anyway, long story short, as long as it's plugged in, it seems to be working fine, and when the car is on the dyno, it'll be no problem having the thing plugged in and, you know, sitting there next to me so I can data log the thing as I'm going through the pulls. At any rate, I wanted to talk to you guys about some of the things that I've done, you know, some of the challenges that I've run into with this particular car. If you've got a Fox body, you know, if you're thinking about buying a Fox body, what are some of the challenges? What are the things to look out for? What is some of the maintenance that you're going to have to do basically the minute that you know, you shake hands and you know, grab those keys. So I'm going to get into that in a minute. Let me say what's up to everybody that's checked in. Michael's already in. Let's see. Samuel's asking, Yo Mason, 2018 Mustang GT 10-speed or 392 Challenger? I'm assuming that you're talking about the 8-speed Challenger. Man, two completely different cars. It all depends on what kind of driving experience that you're looking for. You know, if you want to go with a modification-based plan, then obviously the Mustang's probably going to be the better bet for you. If you want a badass boulevard cruiser that will fry tires until basically you get bored of that, then the 392 is going to be the car for you. Again, yin and yang. They literally can fit in the same garage and have two completely different driving characteristics. So, man, again, it just all depends. Is this a long-term purchase? Is this something that you're going to want to modificaze? Damn, it's been a long day. Plus, it's hot. Man, I'm sweating. I probably lost 5 pounds today just with all the miscellaneous BS I've been doing. Modificaze. Trademark. Anyway, anyway, I think you know where I'm going with this, man. If you want to leave the car stock, have something that looks good, real comfortable, hauls ass, 392 is going to be the way to go. But again, if you're looking to modificaze anything, the Mustang is going to be where you're going to want to be. Pete's checking in saying, yeah, what up, B Mason? What up, Pete? Nathan's checking in saying, good evening, Brian. What's up, Nathan? Canada guy's coming in saying, what is happening? Just hopped in after the crazy NASCAR race. Man, I did not get a chance to see that. I've been crawling under, around, inside, and out of Foxy pretty much all day. So I bet it was crazy, though. And what we're talking about is, yeah, I'm getting the car ready for the dyno. Foxy, she's going on the dyno tomorrow morning, and just different steps that I've taken in that process. So oil change, well, it definitely got a coolant swap because that is a new radiator. But you know, check the transmission fluid level, top that off. Again, making sure tires have correct pressure, filling it up full of gasoline. That's something that never, so one of the things that used to drive me nuts is when guys would show up to have their car dynoed and it would have hardly any fuel in the tank. Especially if, not just for dynoing, but for tuning, because I kid you not, burning through a significant amount of gasoline is not uncommon when you're doing load testing. And by the way, she is going on to a Mustang dyno. She's going to be going over to Pike's Performance. So I will be there early in the morning, strapping her down and tickling the ivories with CalCon and CalEdit software. So hopefully everything goes well, you know, because it's funny because I have strapped down countless cars, right? But it's always different when it's your own. I don't even know what the deal, like you would think it'd be just as easy. It's no different. I mean, it's just another car, right? But it's not like that at all. And so every time I strap my own stuff to the dyno, no matter what it's been, I'm always a little weird about that. But anyway, getting back to it, the main thing is, you know, making sure that the vehicle is fit for the strain that you're going to be putting it under. So that's what I've been up to today, and definitely looking forward to getting started in the morning. That's going to be a lot of fun. So, you know, as far as over under on the number, I don't know. It's hard to say on an eddy current. I can tell you, I don't even remember what the car put down. It's been so many years ago, and the car's kind of changed complexion a little bit since I originally had it. So, you know, it's a 351 car, but it's a low compression 351. GT40 intake manifold, but unported lower manifold. You know, F-cam with 1.7s, that's a good little cam. But shorty headers, it does have cats with an H-pipe and a chambered muffler. I think they're Dynamax or something like that. So, you know, again, it's, no, they're not, I'm sorry, they're not Dynamax. I think they're Courses on this car. Older set of Courses or Borlas. Either way. So again, I mean, this thing is the farthest thing in the world from a max effort setup. So I've got to remember that, you know, the number really isn't what we're looking for. It's just making sure that the data looks good, that everything looks clean, power curve looks clean, and that there's nothing goofy going on with it. But I can tell you right now, based on the way that the car is running, and keep in mind, if y'all check out that last video, that quick, you know, rip through the gears on this thing, you got to keep in mind, I am sweating my ass off. It is so freaking hot and humid right now. It's pretty fun. Anyway, the thing is ripping in DAs of like 3,300 feet. So if that gives you any idea how the car is running right now, I don't think the dyno is going to show me anything that I don't know. It's just, you know, what's the number going to be? Yeah, we'll see. I'm going to play around with timing and fueling and things like that. But realistically, I think the car is running really, really well the way that it sits, and doing really much anything else with it in terms of really trying to throw the wood to it is going to be tough. But I'm going to do a few things. I'm going to try a few things out because it's a lower compression engine. I'm going to play around with timing a little bit. Fueling, probably going to set it to 12.5, 12.6, and basically just forget about it at higher loads, wide open throttle. That's kind of the universal constant. You can get away with, you know, 12.3, 12.4, but, you know, for this, get a little bit more aggressive, but that's really not even aggressive. There's guys that try to shoot for like 13.0, 13.1 NA combinations, and they would say, oh, well, it's a, you know, low compression. It's air fuel ratio doesn't really, it's just whatever the combination likes. That's the funny thing too. Everybody's got their own wives' tale, or, you know, rule of thumb, whatever you want to call it. When it comes to tuning and setting, there's like, oh, every one of them has to be this air fuel ratio. And the funny thing is that I've seen NA combinations be real happy with very rich, Hemis are like this. They're real happy with rich air fuel ratios. You know, NA ratios like, you know, 12.3, 12.2. I've seen the exact opposite take place. I've seen them like it around, you know, somewhere around that 13.0. Some of the LS combinations like it a little bit leaner. So it's just, but I've seen Windsor combinations, one like, you know, 13.0 and one like, you know, 12.4. So it's just kind of weird. Again, it's just whatever that combination happens to like. Each one of them's a little bit different. So we're just going to see. I'm going to play around with timing, play around with fueling, and whatever works, works, you know. But I'll play around with it for a while, and then, you know, once it's done, it'll be a lot of, you know, a lot of data crunching. Let's see. Nathan's checking in saying, good evening, B. What up, Nathan? Let's see. Nathan said, had a 92 GT Mustang with the 347 stroker. Really miss that car. Really brings back memories seeing the Mustang in the garage. Yeah, so that's kind of the thing for me too, guys. This is the car. This is the car. This isn't just one like it. This is my original Fox Mustang. This is the car that got me into tuning. This is the car that I was taking to the drag strip literally every single weekend for years. I mean, guys, you got to remember that this is where it all started for me. So in a lot of ways, you know, it's hard to compare this car with the Hellcat, but you know, it's cool to be able to have that nostalgic feel towards one of these things. And that's really where I'm at with this Fox body. It's not only that, I should say, that it means a lot to me just because of what it represents, but it represents that same thing that it represents to me. It represents that for pretty much everybody. I mean, everybody's got a you know, a Mustang story, a Fox body Mustang story. God, man, I'm sweating my ass off. And I mean, this thing gets smiles and thumbs up everywhere it goes, and it's because everybody has, like, it's just kind of cool vibes no matter what, right? And it's funny because as I've been playing around with the tune and trying to kind of lock into, you know, something that's going to be street friendly, something that's going to be fuel friendly, although with, you know, 8.5, 8.7 or whatever it is to 1 compression ratio, it's kind of hard to not have a fuel friendly tune. But you'd be surprised, you know, it's got the GT40 intake manifold on it, which means lots of velocity. It's trying to, you know, fill those cylinders as best as it possibly can. And, you know, it's got an F-cam in it. So timing, I'm trying to play around with timing a little bit. Right now it's sitting at, I think I'm max at 31 degrees. I've got, not full timing, but almost full timing coming in at around 3,500 RPM. Right around 3,000, 3,500 RPM. So it's, you know, it's spunky as hell. And I don't know, the driving experience is just so much different and so much more engaging than the Hellcat. And that's something else that I wanted to talk about too. You know, not only, you know, what I've been doing with the tune, what, you know, the preparations, getting the car ready for the dyno in the morning, but, you know, one of the things that I've found in, you know, working on the Fox body again is that there's a certain level of fun that comes with a car like this that you simply do not have in a modern car. I'll put it to you like this. I just got back. Might be the other reason why. So I just got back not that long ago. So the engine's still kind of hot. I went and weighed it, and without me in the car, and with somewhere around half a tank of gas, the car weighs 3,240 pounds. That is exactly 1,000 pounds less than the Mistress, than Revlon. So, I mean, we're talking 1,000 pounds less, almost to the, in fact, it's like to the number, 1,000 pounds less. So it's just, yeah, it doesn't have the power. No, it's not as fast or quick or whatever, but let me tell you something. It's plenty damn quick, and it puts a ridiculously dumb looking smile on my face every time I drive this thing. And my wife and I were out in it the other night, and, you know, both of us just laughing and giggling. I mean, like I say, I'm in the middle of tuning this thing, and like, well, you know, it's just such a freaking fun car to drive. And it's interesting where fast, you know, the Hellcat, I mean, you could accidentally put one of those things into the 9s, and I'm going to try to get that thing to, you know, get as close to a 9-second time slip as I can this winter. But I got to tell you, driving this thing around, it's really been, you know, talk about firing up nostalgia. It doesn't get any more nostalgic than a Fox body Mustang for me. I mean, nothing represents, you know, the early 90s, mid 90s, you know, teenage me. Nothing would represent that more than one of these things. So, you know, I don't know. For me, it's just so much fun right now. And so, you know, the sounds of 1990s when I did that video earlier, that was a lot of fun. And by the way, I am in that video, I am rolling out, I'm on street tires. I'm rolling into the throttle, I'm coming off the clutch, I'm rolling into the throttle, and I'm just giving it enough throttle to keep the tires just barely hazing. And then right when I went wide open, I shifted into second, and then I short shifted into second, from second to third, and then I short shifted third to fourth. Just not rounding out the gears too hard, just, you know, shifting about 5,700 RPM on those two. So 6,000 RPM shift on the 1.2, and she ripped it too. That was pretty awesome. So definitely enjoying that. Sam was saying, I've been driving a Rally Redline for a couple of years, and I'm just not sure if I want another Challenger. I can understand that. Was thinking about getting a 2018 5.0 until I can afford a Hellcat. I tell you what, man, you know, not for nothing, okay? I don't mean, this isn't against any of, you know, my Hellcat brothers and sisters. And of course I fly the flag pretty high, but the Mustang rabbit hole, especially a 2018 10-speed automatic, that Mustang rabbit hole will veer you very far away from a Hellcat. Let me just say that coming into this. Especially if you start talking about throwing boost at that Mustang. Now keep in mind, this isn't a cheap endeavor. You're still going to have to upgrade the trans. You're still going to have to do the oil pump gears. You're still going to have to do everything under the sun that's not sexy. We're talking half shafts, drive shaft, full exhaust system, the full whole to get where you need to be, or get where you probably want to be. You can get there with that Mustang, and it will just keep doing it. And if you tune those things, if you tune them proper to the fuel quality and the altitude that you live at, supercharged, and really that's for any car, but Mustangs in particular, if they're tuned properly to the fuel and the altitude, those things are actually fairly durable, and you can expect to run into the 9s with one of those. Now, don't forget to paper up though, because here's the problem. Everybody thinks that Mustang's the cheap way to go, and it's not. I mean, it's cheap, I guess, initially, but everything that you have to do to that car, which is everything, to get it to run those kinds of numbers costs money. And next thing you know, you've turned a, you know, let's say a $27,000 car into easily a $55,000, $60,000 investment. And let's say you run a 980. Well, you can get a Hellcat and run 980s with a hell of a lot less done to them. So, just saying, I mean, there's no better way to do it. It's just whichever way that you prefer. But I'll challenge you to look into the cost before you start really considering that Mustang, because I'm telling you, once you get the Mustang, you're just going to go, whoa, and then we're going to lose you forever. Take a look at the cost and be realistic in terms of durability and safety on putting that car, you know, say into a 1020 range. Start taking a look at that, and I think you're going to find out pretty quickly that you might just want to hold off for a Hellcat in general. But anyway, getting back into it. Oh, Canada guy saying, I just picked me up a throttle adjuster today. Neat little thing. They are pretty cool. You know, I tell you something. I've been a big proponent of those things. Again, you're not going to hurt your warranty. The thing is, you can play with it, and you can literally adjust the complexion of the car no matter what, just with the flick of your thumb. So, yeah, that's cool that you got one. I think you're going to like it. King's Eye saying, it's official. I can only buy Dodge because they're the only American car manufacturer that makes a car that I can fit in comfortably. I'm 6'5", 290 pounds, built like a tank though. And I got a lot of friends of mine, played ball with a lot of friends of mine that were that big. I can understand completely. So, yeah, I would probably guess that the Camaro is probably out of that conversation, right? Yeah, I've had teammates, and in fact, one of my old sparring partners was a rather large individual too. And anyway, miss you, Ronnie. Thinking about you, brother. Ashley's checking in, saying, "What up, B Mason?" for Jacob and I. What's up, y'all? Ashley's asking, how fast is Foxy gonna be? Foxy's gonna be whatever Foxy gonna be, man. Foxy, I've been around Foxy now for what, 20 years? This car is, look, the way it sits now. Okay, let me just rewind this thing for a minute. The way that the car sits now, even with the GT40 and the lower and everything else, it was going to be a street setup blower car. This thing at that time was going to be an S trim Vortec, non-intercooled, making about 7 or 8 pounds of boost. Not a whole lot, and not trying to throw the wood at it either. Just something that would be kind of fun to play around with, and that was going to be it. And the way that the car was before was a 302. With a blower, it's a Powerdyne blower on it, little 400 horse car to the rear wheels. But in one of these cars, that's saying something. But when the car went down the path that it went to stay NA, even though it's low compression, it's still a lot of fun to drive. And this is one of those situations where if I made the car any faster, marketably faster, I could maybe change the curve a little bit, go with a different intake manifold. Maybe go with a different set of heads, because these are 64cc chamber heads. Go with a set of 58cc chamber heads. Take the compression ratio from, like 8.5 to 1 to around 10 to 1. Or rather I should say right around 8.7-ish to 1 to around 10 to 1. That would probably help the car a little bit, but I don't know that it would make it any more fun. And right now, I don't know. I really don't know. I'm going to leave it naturally aspirated. But one other thing about the car is that it is 100% complete emissions compliant. Still has the EGR, still has the EGR spacer. It still has, well, of course it does have the spacer, but anyway, it's got cats, it's got the air pump, it's got everything. So really, for me, the way that I'm looking at it is, this thing is just going to stay fun. And, if it gets any kind of a power bump, it's going to be because, I pull the lower intake off and set it off and have it extrude honed, or, I go with like an Edelbrock RPM intake manifold or something like that. But, I mean, realistically, for me to do anything different with the car, it would need a bump in compression and a different intake manifold to really take advantage of anything. And to be honest, the car runs really good now. Plus, I can get away with crappy gas, and I can kind of get away, or I should say, I can kind of get away with, giving it a little bit of a nudge in terms of timing and things like that. So, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what ends up happening. This thing's been all kinds of different things in its past life. So, Junior checking in and saying, hi to me, Mason. David Van Boris Mechanic Joe has a Fox like yours. He recently crashed the front on the drag strip under repairs. Oh man, I hate to hear that. Ashley's asking, what's the tuning setup you're running with Foxy? So I'm running a tweaker on it. I'm running the Cal Edit software. Unfortunately, this is an older unit, and it's not playing with the new Cal Edit software, which is actually really kind of good, at least as good as an A9L is going to get. That's the type of computer is the A9L, guys, if you don't know. That's what Ashley and I are talking about. It's just like, what am I going to tune it with? but it's actually really good stuff. And it just sucks that I may end up having to get another newer unit to go along with the newer software. But here's the thing, I can still use my old ass dial-em-up smoke signal computer that I got. And but the problem is that the computer's jacked, and I can't data log it. I can't use the data logging feature. Hell, I can't use any feature on that thing unless it's plugged into the wall. So, oh God, if you can only imagine the kind of an ass whipping that is when you're, and what's messed up is that I had it working for a little bit and then the system's like, it crashed. So anyway, on the dyno, I'll be able to have everything plugged in, everything will be happy, and we'll go from there. So, but yeah, again, it's STKR is the name of the company. Cal Edit is the software. The trade name is Tweaker for that A9L. Basically, anything that uses a J9 port from Ford, that's what this setup will be able to control. HU37 saying, ask you, do you plan on taking the Fox body of the drag strip? It would be fun going through the gears with a manual at the drag strip I go to. They have a slick class that generates a lot of interest. If I do, here's the thing. If I end up taking the car to the drag strip, I'm going to want to do it on a tire, like a dedicated drag setup for this thing. But we'll see. So it's probably, the trans probably needs a new set of synchronizers. It's up for a rebuild. This world-class T5 that's in this thing has had its ass kicked. That's been already rebuilt once. So it's probably up for a rebuild again soon, at least a new set of synchros. Maybe it goes to the drag strip. The thing is I have got hundreds of passes with this car, but I haven't made a pass in this car in about 15 or 16 years. So unless you count my rip that I did today, which is, you know, just a little bit of a taste. And that's actually me being kind of gentle with shifting too. But sounds of my people circa 1990X. Isaac's asking or saying, hey bro, what do you think about Pro charging a 392 with the better intercooler they offer? Done a bunch of them. It's good. I'd also be putting the Eddie Rock ported manifold with fuel rail system. Also, the Eddie Edelbrock. It's voice to text there. Ported manifold with the fuel rail system. Also be dropping the Modern Muscle Extreme drop-in piston set. So here's the thing. Let me unpack this for you real quick so that we're all on the same page. First of all, you can go Pro Charger, race intercooler, make 530 horsepower to the rear wheels with one of those things and drive it basically however you want and have a ball with it with a Pro Charger. We've got customers that, I mean, we've done, I was doing a Pro Charger. I was doing one about every 2 to 3 weeks. And it's Pro Charger D1X, race intercooler, injectors, the pump, et cetera, right? So, yeah, you can absolutely do it. Now, you're taking this a little bit like a step farther than going stock. So let me go back into this. So you're going to go the Edelbrock. You're going to go with an Edelbrock manifold. You're going to have that ported. Good deal. So that manifold does just fine with that setup. It doesn't, because everything's kind of a fixed size. Don't worry about throttle body at that point, because it's not going to make a difference one way or another once you start cramming air into it. The porting, okay. I would say that the intake probably just needs to be cleaned up a little bit. Again, we're talking boost. And once you start talking boost at these power levels, it's not going to be, I wouldn't say it's overly necessary, but if you look at the video that I made about that manifold, you'll see, I mean, I'm kind of looking at it, I'm like, damn, this thing really needs a little bit of a cleanup from the factory. The casting, at least the one I was looking at, was a little bit rough. But, you know, for your purposes, porting, it depends on the boost that you're going to be running. I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference. But the drop-in pistons. So here's the thing. It doesn't matter what pistons that you run. Just make sure that you run the right ring gap. Okay? And this is part of the thing. This is, a lot of guys will ask, well, why don't 392s like boost? It's like the 392s don't like boost the same reason that LSs don't like boost. Or that some Coyotes don't like boost. If you pinch a ring, it will pop a ringland. And that's when things become extremely sad, tears flow, expensive problems begin at that point. The thing is that the ringland is kind of shallow on that piston, and the reason for that is it helps with some efficiencies. The ring gap is kind of tight, comparatively speaking, per the bore size. I want to say the stock ring gap on a 392 is like 16 thousandths or something like that. And for that bore size, you're going to need 27 thousandths if you're going to be running boost. Now, I would suggest, or I would at least argue, I should say, that a stock piston would be perfectly fine at 27 or 28 thousandths ring gap on the compression ring and about the same on your second ring. I would say that would probably work just fine in general, the same way that it works perfectly fine with an LS combination. Ramp up the ring gap and go out there and have a ball. See, this is where people kind of get it wrong, and this is one of the things that I want to talk about when we're talking about when the subject is brought up. Well, I can just take a 5.3 out of a Yukon, put a turbo on it, put a cam in it, and it'll make 1,000 horsepower, 800 horsepower, whatever number sounds big to you. It'll do that all day long, all day, every day. It's like, yeah, you've got a 200,000 mile engine whose rings are worn out. They're basically opened up just from the simple fact they're worn. Plus, things probably got blow by anyway. Hit it with boost, the boost helps the rings seal. So it's kind of funny, but yeah, a really worn out street motor is actually a pretty good start for a race engine because they're loose. But anyway, the 392, again, just whatever pistons you decide to go with, make sure you run the proper ring gap. Make sure that you get the thing tuned by somebody that speaks fluent Mopar, and I think you're going to have yourself a winning combination. It'll be a lot of fun to play with too. King's Eye saying, I wonder what the market would be like if manufacturers offered up upgrade packages after you bought the car. Like if you wanted 200 more horsepower, you could call it the manufacturer. Well, they kind of do in a way. I mean, if you want a 392, but you want it to go faster, they got Hellcats for you. Unfortunately, and fortunately, I know what you're driving at though. They did used to have those things. Dealers were able to install different parts to get you where you wanted to be. In fact, you can still do that with Mopar. It's the SCAT packages, but they're only for the 5.7. Go figure, right? But you can still do that. It's just on a very, very limited basis. The way that Mopar does some things when it comes to trying to stay on top of an enthusiast, to try to keep their fingers on the pulse of the enthusiast crowd, seems to be something that's very difficult for Mopar to do. I'm not saying that they do a bad job with the products that they make. It's just that back in the day, everybody wants to hear about the back in the day shit. Anyway, listen, back in the day, direct connection was a real thing. I mean, Mopar sold cylinder heads, intake manifolds, headers, carburetor, you name it. They had that available to you. And unfortunately, there's just no way to do that anymore and still maintain a certain semblance of warranty, I guess, with the engines that are already starting out a little bit higher than that 5.7. Because you got to keep in mind, it's pretty much cake to make a 5.7 run better because they come so freaking neutered from the factory. In fact, I can make an argument that not only is the 5.7 neutered, but the 392 is too. But then again, that gets into power versus the weight and the anyway, the 392 does its job extremely well. Unfortunately, it is definitely a one-trick pony. unless you want to tear them apart and put the work into them. But I know what you're saying, brother. Actually saying, give me some insider info. Is Chris keeping the radials, or will he have a different tire next time we catch each other at the track? Well, Chris will be running the same setup he's been running, ET Street R's, along with one of my tunes. So, bring it. Oh, and get with me about January too, by the way, because if you want to get in on that, I suggest you get in on it like right now, because I've got no slots left. I got like 1 or 2 left. HU saying, but no, actually, yeah, it'll be the same setup. I mean, he's still running full weight, no weight reduction, any of that stuff. I mean, the car's running good. I mean, it's a pretty stout car on 93 octane. It's always a good race between, if you don't know where, so it's Chris with the orange car and Ashley with her orange Challenger. It's a pretty good race anytime those two get together, for sure. HE37 saying, my Mustang has a 6R80 trans with a 3200 stall converter. Can I get an electric trans brake? And is it easy to install? Would it lower my 60-foot times to make installing worth it? No, I wouldn't even bother with it. I don't... Not at where you're at. In fact, most, and I'll take it a step further. If you're running on a sticky tire, running a trans brake setup, especially if you're trying to drop hammer it somewhere around $5,000, which is, I mean, if you're going to run a trans brake, what's the point of not having a car that's set up to be able to take advantage of it? If you don't have the provisions already in place to be able to manage the power drop that thing is going to hit your car with, don't even bother with it. In fact, there's even pro mod folks. There's a lot of bracket racers, street racers, all of them foot brake. I mean, a large portion of those cats, all of them foot brake. And you know, I've never wanted or needed for a trans brake. I've driven cars with trans brakes for folks, and I've driven cars with trans brakes with 1 second delays on 250 shots, and it's and the thing just comes out of its ass. You know, luckily those things, I mean, I'm not paying for the breakage, but we're talking very upgraded axles, drive shafts. Everything in the drivetrain has got to be upgraded if you're going to start trying to play in that league. And again, if you're going to have one, make sure you have a car that's set up to really be able to use it. That's torque converter and the whole bit. Isaac's asking, I have the Corsa catback exhaust. Should I do the full Corsa exhaust as far as headers and mid pipes? I just want to add 150 to 200 horsepower. Should I cam or just keep it normal? Hang on, Isaac. Let's see. So, all right. So picking up 150 horsepower is going to be tough. All right. So if you've already got the Corsa, you got a 392. Yeah, long tubes are going to help it make power down low. You're talking about getting a cam. Long tubes are mandatory with the cam. If you're going to go that route, again, I mean, you're going with a supercharger already. You know, okay. So on the Mustang Dyno, every 392 car, the earlier ones make 395. Let's say to the rear wheels, a healthy one will. Stock, and the later ones will make like 410. That's your horsepower spread. So basically, somewhere around 400, 405 horsepower to the rear wheels. The thing is to pick up the number that you're looking for. Hang on, guys. To pick up the number that you're looking for is going to be tough. It's pretty easy to get it to that 535, 550 range, which is to say 150 horsepower over stock. That is about as far as I would take it. Hang on just a second. I gotta get a thing here. Hang on. Isaac, that's about as far as I would take it, because what you're going to notice is you're going to be running up against the limitations of that transmission. And that is a whole other can of worms. So keep it around 550, give or take. You'll be in good shape. 200 horsepower plus, that's when you're going to start looking at long-term, well, I wouldn't say long-term. It could potentially be really short-term if you're running sticky tires. Issues with your setup. So again, D1X injectors, the whole bit, just go with the normal kit stuff. You don't have to run long tubes, but if you run a cam, if you really want to dial it up, you want to run a cam, you're going to have to pulley the blower up anyway to get back the boost. You know, you'll be able to go from 150, 140 horsepower gain. The cam will get you another 30 to 40 horsepower on top of that. But again, that's a lot more money just to throw down a number. Actually, probably pick up about 50 horsepower with the cam with that setup. But I think you know what I'm talking about. Should I just cam or keep it normal? I would keep it normal. Ashley's saying, that means you helped him figure out how to beat me. Actually, I've been doing a little bit of R&D with his car. Playing around with fueling. I'm not really messing too much with timing, but I've been able to pick up a little bit. We're going to be shooting for, my car. I'm shooting for a 99999 with mine this winter. So I'm going to try to do it on pump gas. If I can get a 10.0 out of it, though, on pump gas, it doesn't... Put it like this. If I can run a 10.09, I'll be real happy. If I can run a 9, my head will explode. But, just working with his car, again, he's running full weight, so if he could just stop being... Anyway. But, I will be playing the game this year. When it comes to covering that number. It's already run a 16 with full interior, full-ish interior, so we'll see. Still had the passenger seat. Ferocious checking in, asking, question, I have an HP tuned 392 and my battery died last week. Changed the battery out and was wondering, do I need to take it back to the shop to get retuned or it'll be fine? It'll be perfectly fine. So the way that the computer works is that you're actually changing the program in the computer. It's not like you've got a standalone that died and lost all of its memory. But no, you're perfectly fine. Actually saying, I have a trans brake, but my foot brake 60 foot is way better right now with the supercharger setup, so I've been using the foot brake. Yeah, so So Ashley's car is a real good example of why and how a trans brake or foot brake, which way could possibly be better. So Ashley's car has a positive displacement supercharger on it, much the same way that a Hellcat would. When you have that kind of a torque hit down low, basically there's no reason for a trans brake, because what RPM are you going to get the thing into to launch it? You're going to be in this huge fat portion of a torque curve, which means that getting the thing to hook is going to be a problem. In fact, it would be harder to launch the car with a trans brake with a positive displacement supercharger, because you're going to be shocking the entire drivetrain. Where a trans brake comes into play and where it works extremely well is with nitrous cars and with turbo cars. It works great with nitrous cars because you're going to be coming off of a trans brake. And again, this is assuming that the suspension is set up and everything's set up to be able to manage the power hit. But you're going to want to get that NA combination into that power band when you let that thing go, and your progressive unit starts to feed in that nitrous very quickly. You're already making close to peak torque coming out of the hole, whereas a positive displacement supercharger is just torque right now. I mean, it's like an electric motor. You just always have peak torque, so there's no reason to really mess with that. Turbo cars love it because you can spool the thing up and basically have a dial-a-torque launch system with turbos. Of course, you guys know turbos are the cheat code. And you can just set that you want to, you know, launch at 500 foot-pounds of torque, then you launch it at 3,500 RPM. You want to launch it at 700 foot-pounds of torque, launch it at 4,700 RPM. It's pretty easy with a turbo just by setting it up that way. So, but really with big engine, small tires, stuff like that, most of those folks just foot brake it because it's easier to modulate the power coming out of the hole. Again, you can go back and watch that quick video that I did, you know, just kind of run through memory lane. In that video, I am mitigating the amount of wheel spin just in how I'm holding the throttle and just as I'm pouring in power, just seeing how it reacts. And really, I mean, I could have literally just kept the rear tires lit up indefinitely, but it was how fast can I get the car to accelerate? And it's just keeping it right on the edge of wheel spin before I grab second gear. So, and again, oh, that's something else I was going to talk about. So getting back to, you know, we're already talking about racing here. Fox body Mustangs, manual transmission cars, things like that. This is how you get good at driving. A lot of guys go, oh, it's driver mod, driver mod. Listen, if I can pilot this thing and do what I did in that video and be able to make this car accelerate like that, driving a Hellcat is like freaking falling out of bed. I mean, there's nothing to it by comparison. Anybody that spends any real amount of time driving a manual transmission or practicing driving a manual transmission will know exactly what I'm talking about. And you get this, it's an intuitive feel because you're constantly feeling stuff with a manual transmission, rolling into the throttle. How does the clutch feel upon engagement? All of these things are, it's part of the sensory process that you get along with traction. What is the rear grip feel like? All of that stuff these Fox bodies will teach you. And I'll say it's easier to learn too because the car is very light. You start getting into the Challengers though, Mustangs and all that, they'll do the same thing. And that's why a lot of guys get so militant about, I'll only drive a manual transmission. Look, you spend enough time driving a manual transmission, you want an automatic. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, this thing it's just so much fun. Slash is checking and saying, "Sup, dude? Sup, Slash?" All right, so oh yeah, getting back to Foxy and her, I guess, you know, latest dyno debut. Not really sure what it's going to put down, to be honest with you. I would venture a guess and say not much. But again, in this case, it's not the number. It's just coming up with the healthiest tune that I can for this car. And again, I mean, I'm using the dyno as a tool. This isn't me going out there and saying, I just want to see a number. Because I'm going on a Mustang dyno. Those things are notorious for being a bit of a heartbreaker. So, I don't know. I'm going to have to kind of swallow a little bit of pride, though, because this low compression stuff never makes any good power. But, yeah, it doesn't matter. When you put any engine that's, you know, making, I don't know, 300 horsepower to the rear wheels and something as light as this, it's going to be a riot no matter what. Drastic's checking in saying, I have a 2019 Charger RT. Current setup, 392 intake manifold. Very nice. Hopefully you've got a window switch. 180 thermostat, drop-in filter, long tubes, catless, and 309 limited slip on NTO5s with a green racing tune. Took my buddy's 392 down in the quarter. Very nice. I like it. Oh, here's TU, man. What's up, TU? Saying you're 100% correct. Yeah, I feel exactly what you're talking about in my 6M Hellcat Challenger. I just love the way it feels. And that's the thing, man. So, the problem with today, okay, here's, you know, your old buddy, you know, Uncle Brian standing on his soapbox here. The problem with people today is that they get confused with the number. The number doesn't mean anything. What I mean by the number is the horsepower number, the ET, how fast does it go? You know, what was it? 60 to 130 or whatever people were asking me about for the Hellcat. Yeah, that's all neat, but in between all of that bullshit, does the car put a smile on your face? Can you get out there and just have fun? Act like a dumb kid. Look, guys, go to my Instagram page. You'll see the video that my wife took when we're out playing around. Check out the video that I did of me rowing through the gears on Foxy. It's one of those things that you just can't put into words. It's so much fun. And when you've got such a connection with the car or truck or the motorcycle, whatever it is that we're talking about, when you've got history with that thing, it adds a certain dynamic to the experience that you're just not going to get. Hellcat just hasn't put in enough time. You know, Revlon's badass, but you know, me and Revlon only been around for just a little bit. Me and this old girl right here go way back. So, you know, it's one of those things where when you get involved with the car and when you start having fun, when you start, let me rephrase this, when you stop having fun, when you stop having fun typically comes at around the, depends on the car, but it comes around that 11-second time slip, especially if you have a manual transmission car. You're worried about breaking stuff. You're worried about missing a shift. You're worried about this, that, and everything else. If you're worried about that, you didn't spend enough time playing. I have never worried about that kind of stuff because I've gotten all of that out of my system, out on the street, acting like a stupid kid. Because I've been a stupid kid since I was a stupid kid, and I'm still a stupid kid to this day. So, it's just one of those goofy things that I've always had fun playing with this car. That car, you don't play with so much. And there's certain things that, and if you can understand, if you can at least understand that mentality. Like, perfect example is, TU and I can be rolling around in Foxy, laughing our asses off the entire time, having nothing but fun. I mean, hanging this thing out sideways, rolling through the gears, trying to see if we can catch a bark and forth. All of that is a lot of fun. Same way with this Hellcat, same idea. The problem is, when it quits being fun, that's when you quit playing. And when you quit playing, that's when your skill set starts to diminish. So for me, I'm playing again. I'm playing a lot, as a matter of fact. I've been in this car freaking all day. If I haven't been working on something here at the house or doing something for work today, I've been playing with this car. So it's a completely different mindset. It's a completely different way of looking at the lifestyle. And look, everybody goes through a phase where you just want to have the fastest thing on four wheels. Got to be the fastest. But at some point, even if you have unlimited funds, which, you know, good on you if you're in that camp, but even if you had unlimited funds, it quits being fun. I mean, what's next? I mean, I don't remember anybody drag racing space shuttles, but I mean, we had a couple of them in the stable. We could have done that. So, but you see my point. It's just one of those things where it's just so much more fun when they're fun. Oh, hang on a second. Antoine, hey man, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Saying another great night of info. I'm currently knee deep in another cam swap on my 5.7. Saying love the third chirp song today from the Fox Body, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. What he's talking about that video that I put out earlier today. I mean, just rolling through the gears on this thing. And yeah, no, that thing was a riot to play around with. But man, I really do appreciate the support on that. Thank you very much. Thanks, bro. I mean, I really do appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, that was a lot of fun to make that video too. I'll tell you, to say the least. Jurassic checking in saying, for a daily driven street car, what would you recommend for additional mods in the future to help reliability, but laying strong passes down? So the best way that I can answer that question, Jurassic, is you build your car from the back to the front and from the ground up, okay? So anything that can beef up the rear end, diff brace, axles, things like that, obviously depending on how aggressive you're going to get with your build. Tires, traction, that is going to help you when it comes to, again, like what I was just talking about, playtime, being able to take the car out, practice. You got to have a good set of tires, and you have to have beefed up suspension components, or you need to have beefed up driveline components to be able to handle the practice that you're going to be putting the thing through. Just like if you're into anything, if you're into sports, all the pain is in practice. When it comes, game day, when the bell rings, that's when you get the chance to show off. But all the hard work's done in practice. So do the things to make you better as a driver. And again, that's building durability into the vehicle, which could be drive shaft. That could mean half shaft, tires, everything else there. From there, you're going to want to get a tune on the car. It doesn't have to be anything crazy, but you're going to have to unlock the computer either way. Go ahead and go that route. From there, depends on what you're going to do with the vehicle. But the most important aspect of it is to make sure that your drivetrain is fit for whatever it is that you're going to be doing with that particular vehicle. HU saying, which number do you think will be higher when you put the Mustang on the dyno? Torque or horsepower? It'll be torque, I can assure you of that. This engine, so you got to remember, it's got a GT40 intake manifold. GT40 intake manifolds are awesome up to about 4,500 RPM. And on a 351, they're awesome up to about 4,000 RPM. After that, they start to give up to some of the other manufacturers' intakes, like an Edelbrock RPM intake. These intakes though are awesome at generating tip-in torque. The engine just feels bigger than it is up to about 4,000 RPM. At that point, the two lines would cross. And if this thing would make peak power at, say, 5,500 RPM, the other intake manifolds would make peak power somewhere around 6,000, maybe 6,300 RPM, and that's when you're making more power. So if you're making peak power after 5252, in other words, basically after 5,200 RPM, if you make peak power out there, you're making more power than horsepower. Anything lower than that, or close to that, then you're going to be making more torque typically than horsepower. The way that this thing is set up, again, lots of velocity through the intake, which is one of the things that kind of screws with putting a tune together. Because on one hand, I've got low compression, but on the other hand, I've got lots of velocity that's trying to fill that cylinder as much as possible, as effectively as it can. Now, that trait will limit RPM capability, but what it does is it makes it very efficient in lower RPM ranges, which again just means you're going to have a lower timing value. So just because it's a 350, or rather I should say, just because it's cammed and has higher flowing heads doesn't mean I can get away with more timing. It just means that I've got to put the thing on the dyno, with the tune that's in it now, and then I'm going to take some timing out of it at wide open, take some timing, or throw some timing into it, and see how it acts. I have a feeling it's not going to be too far away from being right where it wants to be right now, though. TU's already on it, saying he's at HU3. So for some reason, I think Beast Fox makes more torque than horsepower. I really miss the days of NAV8s making more torque than horsepower. Man, so that's part of the fun part about these old engines, though. I mean, you didn't rev them very high. They made what felt like big block torque. They just didn't rev high. They very high velocity heads. There wasn't very much flow potential there. No real potential for any horsepower to speak of, but you had that punchiness. Yeah, a perfect example is my wife's Camaro. That little 305, it's a TBI 305. You're like, why would that even be remotely interesting? It's interesting because it's so punchy. Again, but a lot of that has to do with the fact of, you know, how the throttle body is actuated. It's a cable throttle body, which means that it's a linear throttle body opening, in that it doesn't have like a Nautilus cam on it. It's a linear opening, but whenever you have a linear opening, you have a diminishing percentage. Anyway, I'll spare you the details, but in other words, the more you open it, the less of a percentage of air is going in there. So if it's at 0 and then you crack it to 25%, that 25% is now 100% of the airflow. If you crack it another amount, like say another quarter throttle, that now only represents 50%. I mean, you're doubling the amount of opening, but it's 50% of what you started with. 75% would only yield you 33%. So that kind of gives you an idea. That's why playing with those pedal commanders, I'm segueing into this, that's what makes the pedal commander kind of fun. You can actually, by putting that thing in a more aggressive setting, you can make the car feel like it's got a cable actuated throttle body, which makes it real punchy, makes it real fun to drive. Give that thing a shot, Canada guy. I think you're going to like it. If you just go a little bit more aggressive, it's going to feel just like that car's got a, you know, cable actuated throttle body. I say all of that, I explain all of that to illustrate to you that it's a lot more fun to drive, and it's a lot more interesting to drive some of these older cars for one interesting reason. It's a lot of fun when the older slow stuff, and I say slow, I should say it in quotations. It's interesting when that slow stuff surprises you. You know, that Camaro every once in a while will just rip second gear, you know, if it's nice and cool outside. You know, bark the crap out of second gear. It's just hysterical. I mean, it's funny. So for me, it's just, you know, TV talking about, you know, when engines made more torque than horsepower, and, you know, everybody was just having fun and doing long, smoky, dumb burnouts and doing stuff like that. That's what you get with that type of an engine. And when you start to have these higher winding, you know, big horsepower number, but torque is, I mean, it's impressive only in that it's making peak torque way after some of the older engines even made peak horsepower. Yeah, that stuff is kind of cool, but it gets a little, I don't know, a little too clinical for me. The newer stuff does. I'm talking about the Mustang in particular. It's a little too sanitary for me. And one of the things that just kind of irked me, and by the way, this kind of goes back to the question earlier about should I go 392 or Mustang, the 10-speed automatic. The problem that I had when I test drove the Mustang was that it never impressed me with the way that the car felt, just from like a G-force amount. Never really impressed me there. Now, it would pull at a lower G-force for a long period of time. I mean, the damn thing revved to 7,500 RPM. But, and I'm not even saying this for effect, that Mustang, even though I know it's faster, felt slower than my truck. And it was just one of those weird sensations, like the truck is punchy. The truck that I had at the time was a 392 geared truck, had my tune on it. It just was a good running truck. And it was, but it was punchy and it was sharp. And anyway, it would kind of put you in the seat a little bit. The Mustang had about the same kind of thrust feeling that truck did, I guess. I mean, it's a 315 geared Mustang, which my bad on that, because I should have driven a PP2 car, but with a 355 gears. But it doesn't matter, because the Mustang that I drove was the Mustang that I drove, and that's what I'm basing this off of. And it was just funny because, again, I likened the Mustang to riding in an airplane. You know, you never get the sense when you're taking off in an airplane that you're going as fast as you are when the wheels come off the ground. Yeah, that speed is typically, depending on your altitude, going to be somewhere around, say, 150, 165 miles per hour. Higher altitude, you're going to be going faster. But realistically, you can say 165 and just use that as a blanket statement. But you never feel yourself accelerating that hard. It's just this constant, you know, push. That's what the Mustang feels like. It was never, you know, like the way that Foxy is. Foxy's like pissed, like I'm just, you know, hauling ass, just grabbing at asphalt. Doesn't do it for that long in between gears, but when it's doing it, man, it's doing it hardcore. And you can hear it in that video. That Mustang didn't do that. I mean, it sounded good and it did some cool stuff, but it was like, damn, is this thing ever going to shift? Is this all I can expect? And I felt fairly quickly into that test drive that I just flat out wouldn't be happy with the car. Now, ergonomically, they're fantastic, but just not in the base level. It was just, anyway, I think y'all know where I'm going with that. So, let's see. Queasy's saying, I feel that I don't have interest in being the fastest at all, as long as it's a fun ride. He's got the arm flex. I like it. So yeah, I mean, look, if you want to have fun, buy the stuff that's fun. You know, fast. Well, the only thing that fast will get you quickly is an empty wallet. Especially if you're trying to campaign the thing for any real length of time. And believe me, I've done it. So, you know, been there, done it, got the t-shirt and everything else. But yeah, fun trumps fast every single time. And, you know, I mean, I'm pretty competitive. I've always been very competitive. But if it's not fun, again, if it's not fun, if it freaks you out, then you're not going to want to play with it. If it's going to potentially cost you a ton of money every time you take the thing out, then it's not any fun and you're really not ever going to want to play with it. That's where Foxy comes into play for me. Foxy is that I just want to go out and act a fool. Just do some sideshow shit. That's what Foxy's there for me for. Let's see. Eric's asking, any mods done to the Hellcat? Yeah, it's got a 309 gear. It's got the Mopar red eye rear seat delete. It has, well, my tune, but primarily transmission tune. Doesn't really have any extra timing in it. It's got some timing in it to accommodate, and it's a stretch for this car to even get to that airflow cell on the, anyway. It does have some timing to manage some of the things I made in the transmission tunes. Primarily a bunch of transmission tuning that's in that car. But that's it. Oh, it's got a red-eye drive shaft that multiple Mopars donated to the cause. And so thank you, brother. And let's see, what else has it got? Factory cats, factory exhaust. TBA idler pulleys, because my idler pulleys look like ass, and 180 degree thermostat. What am I forgetting? I feel like I'm forgetting something. But it's stock pulleys, stock fuel pumps, all of that. That's it. Doing a whole lot with not a lot with that car. HU37 saying, oh, is that to you saying my Mustang makes more horsepower than torque? It's a real pig out of the hole. I'll be tuning my wife's Taurus SHO where it will make more torque than horsepower. Should be fun to drive. Yeah, SHOs are fun. Yeah, and that's one of the things. I mean, horsepower, again, it's a function of torque at RPM. So you just take your torque, multiply it times your RPM, divide that by 5252. There's your horsepower. So that's your formula for the night. Again, to get that horsepower number, torque multiplied by horsepower divided by 5252. Let's see. But so yeah, I mean, and the fun thing about getting back into, if you want to look at it like this, the fun thing about getting back into the Fox body and just the older stuff in general, the fun thing about that is that it's an opportunity for me, as far as tuning goes, to kind of circle back around and basically recollect some of this knowledge that is kind of going by the wayside a little bit, it seems like anyway. Still plenty of people that work with this software and can tune, but you know, it's just one of those things where, you know, you can, and this is where the whole tuning thing kind of really got its start, was with Cal Edit, Binary Editor, and you know, there's a couple of others, Megasquirt. These were all kind of at the very forefront of the whole tuning thing. You know, when people really started getting into, you know, tuning and supercharging and things like that, and trying to find solutions to make the stuff work seamlessly, that's where these products were coming into effect. And again, Cal Edit's still in business. In fact, their latest, and I wish it worked because it, but their latest software is really nice. So, I mean, there's that, but yeah, it's just kind of cool to circle back around and be able to revisit this. And I'm looking at, it's funny because I'm going through the program and I'm going, oh yeah, I remember that, or oh damn, I almost forgot about that. And then, you know, so I was going through the tune that I had. And by the way, the cool thing about these older computers is you can flip them on the fly. The Cal Edit software, I've got a 5-position switch, and just cruising down the road, I can click, click, click. I can put it on whatever tune I want. So, you know, I can tune in a valet tune, and, you know, you remove your switch and it locks in your valet tune, so it'll only rev to like 1500 RPM. But you can have a nitrous tune, a race gas tune, a fuel economy tune. You can have all kinds of tunes on your switch, which is kind of cool. And that's basically how this is going to be set up. So for this car, my position 4 is going to be the tune that I'm working with. But what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to actually put some tunes together, save them to the car, and that way I don't have to, I've already know what changes I want to make to the tune, and instead of having to go in and basically change everything, you know, in the car while I'm sitting there the way I'd have to with HP tuners. Well, not that, I mean, I could just have the tunes written and then load them, but the idea here is just still the same. I can just reach over and flip a switch. So anyway, yeah, valet, regular tune, nitrous tune, more nitrous tune, fuel economy tune. I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff with these things. So, Sam checking in saying, "Yo, B Mason, what up, Sam?" But that's what I'll be tuning with tomorrow. Fingers crossed that it works, because again, the only way that this freaking computer will work is if it's plugged in. And what sucks is that I had it working, and then it decided to not be working anymore. And of course, you know, the cigarette lighter thing in this car doesn't work, so I can't just plug an inverter into it. So yeah, there's that. But anyway, getting back to it, oh, the preparation thing, that's right. So you know, it's funny, you know, again, talking about putting a car on the dyno, I'm always skittish about putting my own stuff on there. But again, you got to follow the protocol. So check fluids, make sure everything's topped off, fill it up full of gasoline, basically set yourself up for a good day on the dyno. Check it for leaks, make sure nothing's acting dumb, which I've already done. Basically, she's pretty much ready to go. So anyway, I'll be trying to bring you guys some results of that. I'm probably going to be flying solo tomorrow, so I'm gonna, if I do get any video of the car on the dyno, it's going to be kind of jinky. I may just post up to the Instagram page, just, you know, show some charts or something like that. So, but At any rate, well, guys, I'm coming about an hour and 15 minutes into this. I got to start getting this thing prepped, ready, make sure I've got all my stuff. Give it one more good once over, and then it'll be hitting the rack so I can go put this thing on the dyno. But at any rate, y'all have yourselves a fantastic evening. Stay safe out there. God bless. We'll catch you on the next one. That's a wrap.